Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about how to find some freight and understand how freight moves. I'm putting together a series of different videos of which we're going to show you some different things on YouTube about what we go through every day as a freight broker or a freight broker agent when it comes to finding our customers, finding our prospects, and then also even negotiating some rates. Now, there are going to be multiple videos in this series, so you're going to have to check my YouTube channel for the other variations. Just due to the length of some of these, we can't just upload it all in one shot. Now, what you're looking at in front of you, this is a map of the United States of which I've put together. And for the purpose of this video, we're going to be talking about, on this screen, we're going to be talking about produce. Now, you're going to see some different areas of the country where produce moves out of. These are the different hot zones, all right? Now, these zones are not all going to be popping at once. Produce has seasons. Some produce is going to come out in the fall and the winter, some's going to come out in the spring and the summer. It really all depends on what type of produce that you are working in, where it's going to be coming out of. All right. See, if you look up here in the Northwest, and I'm focusing on Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, Colorado areas, this produce is going to come out in the fall, in the winter of the year. You'll be looking for stuff like, in Idaho, of course, potatoes and onions. Oregon, you'll be looking for onions and potatoes as well. Up in Washington, you'll be looking for apples. You'll be looking for Christmas trees, Christmas wreaths, etc. If you go down south, you're going to be looking into California. Now, California is a strange bird. California has two separate marketing times. In Northern California, around Salinas, which is America's salad bowl, that produce is going to be moving from May to October. There will be thousands of loads daily coming from growers, shippers, and packers. But then after, basically around September 15th, what's called the produce coolers, they close. You're then going to go into what is called the winter transition. That's when it comes out of the south. And if you'll look down here on the Arizona, California, Mexico border, all this stuff's going to be coming out of the El Centro area. It's going to be coming across the border from either Tijuana, Nogales, Arizona, Douglas, Arizona, places like that. Those are the border crossing points, because all this produce is going to be coming across from Mexico into, places like Yuma, Arizona, El Centro, California, to these produce coolers. And that's where the reefers will go and load this to take it to American distribution facilities or other customers. Now, in the spring, if you look over in, for instance, New Mexico, all right, New Mexico, around the Clovis area, you'll have a lot of watermelons and onions and peppers, things like that. Now, that'll take place, March, April, because that's their season. Let's go down to Texas. You'll see at the very bottom point of Texas, that's the Golden Triangle in two different times of year. You'll have it in the spring, and you'll also have it in the late summer. And this is going to be McAllen, Farr, and Edinburgh, Texas. And what's going to happen here is all this stuff is coming across from Mexico, and it'll once again go to the different produce coolers. They'll load it and transport it across the nation. As we bounce over to Florida, Mississippi, Louisiana, you'll have early marketing times for this produce coming out of there, because basically these are your spring runs. Like in Florida, you're going to have tomatoes and peppers. In Mississippi, Louisiana, you're going to have sweet potatoes. Over here in Alabama, Georgia, as we start to enter early summer, you'll have sweet corns, you'll have watermelons, you'll have things of that nature. All right. As you move up into the Northeast, a lot of this produce up here is going to start coming out in the summer and late fall. All right. And finally, in the Midwest, most of that is a summer hit. going up into North Dakota, Minnesota for potatoes, Wisconsin for potatoes. Around Illinois, you have your sweet corn, you have your pumpkins, things of that nature. Michigan, you'll have apples, you'll have trees, you'll have a number of different things, and there's always different shrubbery coming out all over the country. Now, when you're searching for your different produce and things of that nature, I strongly suggest you use your different um, items available from the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a separate video that we're going to upload. Now we're going to continue on, and I do the same thing for heavy manufacturing, all right, facilities. We're not just going to talk about food, we're talking about manufacturing, all right? This is your stuff that's going to load on a dry van, a flatbed, your open top freight. And, it could be anything from light bulbs to tennis shoes to gears to lawnmowers. You know, your heavy manufacturing is going to take place in the Northwest, the Midwest, and the Southwest and Southeast. It's not that these other states don't have manufacturing facilities, but other states, they don't have the volume of manufacturing that these places in America do. When you're looking to maybe work a niche market and you're looking for a customer, you might want to focus in these areas looking for your manufacturers and producers. You're not necessarily going to be looking for a specific item. You're going to just be looking for manufacturing facilities that are going to be available. You'll utilize buyer's guides to find them. You'll utilize trade directories. You'll utilize different chambers of commerce. All right. This is what's going to help you find those different customers which are shipping that type of freight. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit about how we're going to talk about an example freight lane, how that freight's going to move during the hot part of the season, and what a truck is thinking when you're negotiating a rate with him. Now, right here, I've got that big arrow on the screen, which you're looking at there. And this is an example load that's coming from McAllen, Texas, going to Boston, Massachusetts, up to the Chelsea market. Now Chelsea is Boston's big produce area up there. That's where all the trucks go in to unload. That's where the produce wholesalers are. And during the peak times of the year, trucks are going to sit down there and wait on the good loads. They're going to pay the higher rates. This is when brokers are most vulnerable. All right. This is when we are literally going to have to keep negotiating with our customer to get a higher rate so we can make money because there's so many loads available and not enough trucks to cover them. Even though you're most vulnerable in negotiating with the truck, this is also where shippers are most vulnerable and they got to up the rate if they want that freight to move. All right. So this load is coming up there, and you might have to pay if you utilize some of the resources which I've showed you, like the truck rate report, which is available from the USDA, and I've showed you that in other videos. It'll show you kind of an example of what loads are going for right now to brokers and actual trucking companies, and you can use that as a starting rate, to work with your trucks. Now, even though we're the most vulnerable with a load such as this, or you could even use this same circumstance coming out of Salinas, California during the hot times, or maybe even out of Immokalee, Florida, once that truck gets up there, and it doesn't matter what time of year it is, he's going to be vulnerable to you because then once that truck goes to that mass distribution facility like Chelsea, there's going to be literally 1,000 trucks available, but not that many loads. Now you'll see what I have posted on the screen here. Now we're in Boston going back to Chicago. So now the complete reverse happens to the truck. All right. The truck is going to be needing a load coming out of Massachusetts to get him, say, to a better spot to where he can reload and make more money. Now, if there's 1,000 trucks available and very few loads available to those trucks or to those brokers, that means the freight rate goes down considerably. And I mean dirt cheap. it's more profitable for those trucks to take a lower paying load than to sit there for 3 days looking for a load. And that's exactly what's going to happen when they go to Boston. You'll see reefers, refrigerated trailers, that will be used as dry vans to haul something out of there just to get them basically back to a place where they could reload with a good refrigerated product. Like maybe he wants to go to Chicago to grab a load of meat to come back to New York or Massachusetts with, or something like that, because he might take $1 a mile for coming out of Boston, and then he'll go to Chicago and pick up a load that will pay $3 a mile going back onto the East Coast. What we're talking about is knowing how freight moves, knowing the hot points of where it's coming from, either like I said, out of McAllen or out of Boston. When I'm looking for shippers, when I'm trying to establish a niche, when the agents that work with me basically are asking me these questions, I said, look, you don't always have to look in the hot areas where freight is going to be. A lot of times I look where freight is slow. Because if I look, especially up in Boston, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, freight is not traditionally high paying coming out of there, especially going back into the Midwest or going back to California or back down to Texas to get another load. These backhauls, if you will. So the more customers I find up there, I at least have a lot of trucks available, and I can actually make more money on that lower paying freight than I could off of a higher paying load in a high region, of freight versus a low region of trucks. Guys, that's going to conclude this video. Look forward to the other videos in this series that we're going to be including today. This is Scott Woods. I'm the Freight Broker Trainer. Please check our website, www.freightbrokertrainer.com. We will show you how to make money in this industry. We are the real deal. No one can teach you as much about freight brokering as we can. Once again, our website is www.freightbrokertrainer.com.